Level 1. The frozen stray. The asphalt vanishes. You are face down in waist-deep snow. The ambient temperature is -20 degrees Celsius. A leather boot violently kicks your ribs, flipping you over. 3 figures in bloody furs tower over you, pressing bone-tipped spears against your throat. They do not kill you immediately, but survival is a technicality. You are dragged by your ankles across the frozen tundra and thrown into a shallow pit, covered by a grid of massive ribs. Likely from a mammoth. You are not a guest. You are emergency winter rations. There are 5 other naked, emaciated captives inside. Every morning, a guard drops exactly 2 pounds of frozen offal into the pit. The strongest hoards it. The weak slowly freeze to death. It is your second night. The temperature drops another 5 degrees. The captive next to you stops breathing. You are losing feeling in your toes. Severe frostbite will set in within 2 hours, followed by necrosis. You cannot outmuscle the others for the meat, but you understand basic thermodynamics. You crawl toward the remaining 4 shivering bodies. You don't speak their guttural language, but you grab them, forcibly pulling them into a tight circle. You place the weakest in the absolute center and link the arms of the outer 3. Huddling closely together, they resist at first, but the immediate trapping of ambient body heat, a basic penguin huddle, forces them to realize the benefit. You tap your own chest, then point to the person on the windward edge. You count to 100 using your fingers. Then physically rotate the formation, shifting the freezing outer person to the warm center. By dawn, the 4 of you are still alive. When the guard peers into the pit and sees the organized survival structure, his eyes narrow. He points his bone spear directly at you. You have proven you possess a strange organizational intellect. You are no longer just meat. You are promoted to a tool. Level 2. The expendable bait. Your new status buys you stiff leather boots and a dull stone knife. You are thrust into the vanguard of a 12-man hunting party. The mechanism of your new existence is brutally simple. You are the bait. The tribe relies on driving megafauna into unfavorable terrain. And to do that, someone has to piss off the beasts and run. The mortality rate for your role is catastrophic. Over the past month, 8 baits have gone out. 1 came back. The party spots a 6-ton male, woolly mammoth. The headhunter shoves you forward. Instruction: hit it. Then run toward the narrow ravine 300 yards north. You throw ice at its trunk. It roars and charges. 25 miles per hour. Traditional baits run in a terrified straight line and get trampled. You know, a heavy object has immense forward momentum, but terrible lateral agility. As the beast closes, you snap your trajectory hard, right. At a 90-degree angle, the mammoth skids on the permafrost. You zigzag aggressively. Reaching the ravine, you dive into a sharp, V-shaped rock crevice. The mammoth slams into the entrance, its tusks wedging into the rock walls. Missing you by 6 inches, hunters descend and sever its spine. Level 3. The Flint Scavenger. Your agility gets you reassigned to the stone napping circle. Here, the weak smash river rocks to create flint flakes. The quota, 50 sharp flakes by sundown, or you receive only watery bone broth. Your soft, modern fingers are blistered, bleeding, and trembling within the first hour. By midday, you have only managed 12 viable flakes. You will starve tonight. The 8 people around you do the entire process individually. Search, strike, edge, incredibly inefficient. Assembly line logic. You barter half your tomorrow's water ration to get the attention of 3 nearby nappers. Through gestures and rudimentary grunts, you force them to stop individual production. You assign the one with the best eyesight strictly to sort and pile suitable core stones. You assign the strongest one exclusively to the heavy, blunt striking. You and the one with the most dexterous fingers handle only the final edge sharpening. Muscle memory builds rapidly. In the remaining 4 hours, your 4-person micro-factory produces 240 perfect flakes. You take the surplus to the quartermaster and trade the extra 40 flakes for a thick strip of cured fat and a spot closer to the communal fire. Level 4, the Firekeeper. Your ingenuity brings you to the center of the tribe's political and physical warmth. The old Firekeeper perishes from a lung infection. The chieftain, a massive brute missing half his face to a bear swipe, violently grabs the shoulder of you and shoves you into the sacred circle of ash. You are now the master of the flame. It is the highest honor for a non-warrior, but it comes with an absolute ultimatum. If the tribal fire dies, you will be thrown into a frozen swamp, alive. A massive blizzard strikes on your 4th day. The wind speed exceeds 50 miles per hour. The meager stockpile of dry wood is exhausted. The tribe brings you damp, freshly cut pine branches, covered in snow. The embers are dimming, shrinking to a circle no larger than your fist. Panic ripples through the camp. Warriors begin eyeing you, preparing the ropes. You don't pray to the fire spirits. You violently kick away the rocks suffocating the base of the ash pit. To create an air draft, you arrange the damp wood into a hollow teepee above the embers. Radiant heat bakes the moisture out. As the wood dries, the chimney effect pulls oxygen from your bottom draft. 12 minutes pass in agonizing suspense, then a sharp crack. A bright, stable yellow flame erupts. The tribe falls to their knees. Murmuring in awe, you rule the heat. Level 5. The Trapmaster. Winter deepens, bringing the harshest famine in a decade. The hunters return empty-handed for 6 consecutive days. The elderly are being quietly strangled and eaten. The chieftain drags you to the edge of the camp. Below, in a shallow valley, a herd of 30 reindeer is grazing, but they are incredibly fast and skittish. A frontal spear assault will yield 1, maybe 2 kills at best. The chieftain demands the Firebringer produce a miracle. You analyze the topography, a classic funnel problem. You refuse to let the hunters charge. Instead, you order the entire camp, women, children, the injured, to gather every spare piece of dark fur and tall sticks. You instruct them to build 80 fake human silhouettes, planting them in 2 long, converging lines along the valley floor, creating a massive V that ends in a narrow, steep mud ravine. You place the actual hunters only at the very end of the bottleneck. At your signal, runners approach the herd from the rear. The reindeer panic, instinctively avoiding the dark silhouettes. They funnel themselves directly into the mud ravine. Hunters step forward and slaughter them with brutal efficiency. 18 kills, over 4,000 pounds of meat. 0 casualties. The chieftain stares at you, a mix of terror and deep respect in his eyes. Level 6. The Meat Warden. The sudden influx of 4,000 pounds of meat threatens to destroy the tribe's social fabric. With a slight warm spell approaching, the meat will begin rotting in 5 days. A faction of young, aggressive hunters demands an immediate, unrestricted feast. Subtly threatening the old chieftain's authority, you step between the factions. You cannot fight them, but you can control the economy. You introduce the concept of preservation and accounting. You order the women to slice the meat into paper-thin strips and hang them over low, hardwood smoke fires. Jerky lasts for months. More importantly, you introduce the tally stick. You take a smooth bone and carve specific notches into it. 1 deep notch equals 1 daily ration of jerky. You hand these sticks to the hunters based on their kills. You convince the chieftain that only he and you, his accountant, holds the master stick. By creating a physical representation of debt and credit, you turn chaotic gluttony into a tightly controlled primitive economy. You now dictate who eats and who starves, without lifting a spear. Level 7, the Warlord. A neighboring mega-tribe, known for consuming the flesh of their enemies, gets word of your wealth. They launch a raid at dawn with 40 warriors. Your camp descends into chaos. Your chieftain freezes in panic as the cannibals tear through the perimeter, instantly killing 12 of your people. Individual combat means death. You need modern military cohesion. You snatch a heavy spear from a dead guard. You scream, a primal roar that cuts through the panic, and order 15 of your surviving hunters to close the gaps. You physically push them shoulder to shoulder into a narrow choke point. You kick the backs of their knees, forcing them to brace the butts of their spears against the frozen earth at a rigid 30-degree angle, the phalanx. The cannibal raiders, used to chaotic, one-on-one brawls, charge blindly into the choke point, impaling themselves directly onto the braced spears. 6 raiders die in the first clash. The rest falter. You step out of the formation and drive your spear through the throat of the raid leader. The cannibals break and run. Your chieftain steps forward to claim the victory. But the 15 men in the phalanx turn their bloody spears toward him. They look at you. You nod. The chieftain is deposed. You are handed the chieftain's bearskin cloak. Level 8. The Apex Sovereign. Using your disciplined phalanx, your stockpiled rations, and sheer organizational terror, you march on the cannibal camp in the dead of winter, starving and disorganized. They surrender after a brief, bloody slaughter. You absorb their numbers. You now command a massive tribe of 500 souls. You are now entirely draped in massive mammoth furs, but sitting on your new throne of lashed mammoth ivory. Looking down at the ledger of tally sticks in your lap, the reality of the math crushes you. 500 mouths require at least 1,500 pounds of meat every single day. The sick, the old, and the injured consume 20% of the resources, but produce nothing. There is no morality in the Ice Age. There is only the spreadsheet. You institute a brutal caste-based quota system. The strong hunt and eat. The weak are sent to the Flint quarries and forced into 12-hour shifts. If a sub-tribe fails to meet its quota, you publicly execute the weakest member to motivate the rest. You use your modern understanding of division of labor not to elevate humanity, but to build a perfectly optimized machine of exploitation. You stare out at the freezing tundra. You have survived the game, but you have become the ultimate monster that runs it. The wind howls. Tomorrow, 500 people will wake up hungry. The pressure never stops.